Hey friends, aloha! Welcome to the family Fudge and welcome to Bunches of Lunches Lilo and Stitch edition. The kids and I just got to see the brand new Lilo and Stitch movie, and of course, this week I'm celebrating with some extra fun island-inspired lunches. Now you guys know I love creating lunches inspired by our favorite movies, and so far I've done Harry Potter lunches, Wicked lunches, Super Mario, and even Minecraft. But of course, this week, I'm gonna try to bring a little bit of that tropical Ohana magic to our lunchtimes. Since it's summer break right now, I will be making these lunches on some trays, so no lunch boxes needed. These lunches are going to be fun and colorful and full of easy to make but delicious recipes. So friends, come along with me as I try to bring the world of Lilo and Stitch to life, one tasty lunch at a time. Okay friends, I'm kicking things off with Stitch's out of this world lunch, complete with a pizza grilled cheese. Now honestly, I can't remember a ton of food being in either version of Lilo and Stitch, but in this new version, there is a scene where Lilo and Nani are sitting down together for some classic pizza. And you guys, they are not having Hawaiian pizza. There was no pineapple in sight. So keeping that in mind, I'm making this sandwich with just pizza sauce, mozzarella cheese, and some turkey pepperoni. Now to give this sandwich a Stitch vibe, I'm using my favorite new grilled cheese maker. This one is from Amazon, and honestly, I've tried a ton of kitchen gadgets and waffle makers over the years, and I can say that this one actually works. It gets the sandwich perfectly crispy on the outside, it melts the cheese nicely on the inside, plus it leaves a cute Stitch design on the front and the back, which you know I love. Now let's talk about the sides. For the fruit, I'm making some cantaloupe stars. And this is because Stitch is technically an alien from a different galaxy. But then for the veggies, I'm putting together some flying saucers using sliced cucumbers and cherry tomatoes. And to make these even more adorable, I'm going to add some tiny alien food picks. Next, for a crunchy snack, I'm adding some space balls, and these are kind of like a healthier version of Cheetos. They're crunchy and cheesy and go super well with this lunch. And of course, because these are special lunches, I do want to include a sweet treat. First, I found the cutest Lilo and Stitch fruit snacks. I'm going to add one of these on the side. And then to finish off this out of this world lunch, I'm making a Dole Whip inspired float. Now, instead of just using pineapple soft serve, I actually found a pineapple sherbet that also has hints of lime and orange. This is super sweet, it's citrusy, and totally fits our tropical vibe. I'm going to add 1 scoop to each cup, and then I'm gonna pour some pineapple juice right over the top, just like a Dole Whip float that you might find at Disneyland or Disney World. And now to really take this over the top, I'm going to add some pineapple skewers right to the top. For our next Lilo and Stitch inspired lunch, we're diving under the sea. Well, almost. This lunch is inspired by a food that you're gonna see right at the beginning of the movie, but you have to watch closely. It happens so fast, if you blink, you might miss it. I'm talking about Lilo's weekly tradition of feeding Pudge the fish. Every Thursday, Lilo makes sure that Pudge gets his peanut butter sandwich because, according to Lilo, Pudge controls the weather, and it has to be peanut butter because feeding a fish a tuna sandwich, as Lilo says, would be an abomination.
I'd be an abomination!
Now moving on to the fruit. Of course, I'm going to be adding some juicy pineapple. Lilo and Stitch is set in Hawaii after all. But then for the veggies, I'm going to be adding a 626 salad, and that's in honor of Experiment 626 himself, Stitch. This is just a simple green salad for the base, but then I'm going to top it with extra slices of cucumber, and then for a fun detail, I'm cutting some cheese slices into the numbers 626, and this will just be a tasty way to decorate the top. One of the things I love about these movies is the music. In fact, I have the main theme song stuck in my head right now. But did you know that a bunch of the songs in Lilo and Stitch are actually Elvis Presley songs? That's right, both Lilo and Stitch are huge Elvis fans, and honestly, I am too. Fun fact, you guys, I was actually born on Elvis's birthday. So of course, the next food I'm making is inspired by one of my favorite Elvis songs featured in this movie, and it's called Devil in Disguise. This song plays during one of the funniest parts of the movie. It's when Stitch is at his naughtiest. So of course, I had to make some Devil in Disguise deviled eggs to go with this. For these deviled eggs, I'm keeping things pretty classic. This is a simple recipe, which is mayo, onion powder, white vinegar, paprika, and salt and pepper. And that brings us to a very fun sweet treat for this lunch. It's one that is super easy to make, but it does take a little bit of time to set up. These are called ocean water jello cups, and they're complete with edible sand on top. These are such a cute way to tie in the beachy, tropical vibes of Lilo and Stitch, and honestly, they're a huge hit with my kiddos too. Here's how I make these. I start by whipping up some quick set jello, and to make this as tropical as possible, I found a jello that is actually coconut and citrus flavored. Seriously, you guys, this jello is like a beach vacation in a cup. Once the jello is set up, it's time for the next layer, which is Cool Whip. And this is to look like the fluffy ocean waves crashing onto the shore. And speaking of shore, I just took a few golden Oreos and crushed them up really fine. So all the edible sand goes right on top. Then I finished each treat with a Stitch cupcake topper and a tiny umbrella. And lastly, to finish off this lunch, I had to throw in a Capri Sun. Now, if you've seen the new movie, you'll know that Capri Suns actually make several appearances, and there's even a really funny scene where Nani tries to heat one up and serve it as tea. But don't worry, I'm not serving this one as tea today. I don't think my kids would enjoy hot Capri Suns very much, and honestly, I don't think I would either. Okay friends, that brings me to our next lunch of the week, and I'm calling this one Not Nani's Sliders. Other than pizza and peanut butter sandwiches, another food that you can spot in the new movie are Kahlua pork sliders. Now there is a scene where Nani gives Lilo one, but after just one bite, she immediately spits it out. Don't worry you guys, the sliders I'm making today are a whole different story. The sliders I'm making are inspired by the ones from the Hawaii booth at Epcot. Now if you've ever been to Epcot during one of their festivals, you might have seen this on the menu before. They're quite popular and my kids love them. Here's how I'm putting them together. First, I started with some classic Hawaiian rolls, and as a side note you guys, I just heard they're coming out with an ube coconut flavored Hawaiian roll soon. That sounds amazing. But of course today I'm sticking with the original. For the filling, I used some slow roasted pulled pork and I tossed it with a generous amount of Hawaiian style barbecue sauce. This is sweet, it's smoky, and it is so tasty. Then, just like the Epcot sliders, I'm gonna pile the pork onto the rolls. Then I topped it with a simple coleslaw mix for some crunch, followed by some mango and pineapple salsa. Then I finished it off with a little drizzle of spicy mayo. Now, I think these look just as good as the ones from Epcot, if not maybe a little bit cuter, because I've also added some pineapple pigs in here for decoration, and it also helps the sliders not fall apart on our tray. Next, for the fruit and veggies, I'm keeping things simple. I'm just adding some flower-shaped watermelon and some crinkle-cut carrots and cucumbers. To go along with the sliders, I made a big batch of macaroni salad, and I tried my best to make it taste just like the mac salad that I got to try when I visited Hawaii years ago. This recipe calls for lots of mayo, a little bit of milk to thin it all out. It also called for apple cider vinegar, finely grated carrot and onion, and also green onions. Now, I will go ahead and add the link to this recipe down below if you want to make this yourself. It turned out delicious, you guys. And just like with a lot of Hawaiian plate lunches, I'm going to add a scoop of this right over here. And now you guys, for the sweet treat, I went all out with something that looks fancy, but it was honestly really easy to make. These are pina colada cupcakes. Now, I definitely took a little help from the store. For the cake itself, I found a delicious pineapple flavored cake mix, so it's tropical and sweet and perfect for this themed lunch. This gives the cupcakes an extra rich flavor with a hint of coconut. It is so good. Then I also added an extra splash of vanilla because this is an easy trick to make a boxed cake mix taste more homemade. Now, I did go ahead and bake these in silicone liners just to make sure nothing stuck. And once they were cooled completely, it was time for the frosting. And again, I took some help from the store. I bought some regular vanilla icing, but to make it even more tropical, I added just 2 teaspoons of coconut extract. I got that mixed in really well. Then I piped on the frosting with a nice swirl. Now I did go ahead and add some extra shredded coconut to just half of the cupcakes. Some of my kiddos like coconut flavor, but they're not huge fans of coconut texture, so leaving a few cupcakes plain was a perfect compromise. Then, to really dress up these cupcakes and give them a tropical vibe, a maraschino cherry, a little piece of dried pineapple, and of course, a tiny cute umbrella. And of course, no tropical lunch is complete without a fun drink. For this lunch, I just added a little red Hawaiian punch. Okay guys, last but definitely not least, I'm making what I'm calling Lilo's lunch plate. And I have to say, this one might just have the tastiest main course out of all of the lunches this week, even though it has Spam in it. Now I know Spam does get a bad rap, but here's a fun fact. The state of Hawaii actually consumes more Spam per person than any other state. In fact, they love it so much in Hawaii that they even throw an annual festival called Spam Jam in Waikiki. At Spam Jam, you can find everything from Spam tacos, Spam cookies, Spam ice cream. Yes, that really does exist. And of course, you can also find Spam fried rice, which is exactly what I'm making today. Now, I actually found this recipe on the official Spam website, but I do want to make a few little changes of my own to give it a personal touch and I think make it even more delicious. Here's how I'm making it. First, I'm dicing up my Spam into small cubes. And personally, I like to get the lower sodium Spam because Spam can be pretty salty. Now, I am using my crinkle cutter for this, but obviously you don't have to. Next, in my pan, I'm going to scramble up a couple of eggs. Once those are cooked, I'm going to take them out and set them aside so I can move on to crisping up that Spam. Now, I think Spam is best when it's a little bit crispy and golden brown on the edges. So once it is almost done, that's when I like to add in my peas and carrots. And at this point, I'm also going to throw in some chopped green onions. And now it's time to add in the rice. Now I'm using about 3 to 4 cups of day-old rice, and it definitely takes some muscle to get it out and stirred in pretty well. Yes, I probably should have grabbed a larger pan for this. Now the original recipe on the Spam website calls for adding 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. But here's where I'm switching things up. I'm gonna go ahead and add in some Bachan's Japanese barbecue sauce instead. We love this stuff. And I know it says barbecue sauce, but it's not like thick and gloppy. This one's actually a lot thinner of a consistency, and it's packed with a ton of flavor. Of course, it does have soy sauce in it, but it also has ginger, garlic, onion, sugar, and rice vinegar. And then this part is optional, but since I have some on hand, I'm just gonna drizzle in a little bit of sesame oil. This adds such an amazing nutty flavor, it is delicious. Once that's all stirred in, I can go ahead and add back in those scrambled eggs. Now friends, I did go ahead and give this a taste test, and I thought it could use just a little bit more of that Bachan's barbecue sauce. And then I was actually really surprised that this recipe didn't call for garlic at all. So I did go ahead and sprinkle in a good amount of garlic powder, and let me tell you, it made such a huge difference. Next time I make this, I'll probably add in fresh garlic instead for even more flavor. For the fruit, I'm keeping things simple. I'm gonna put together a fruit salad with a little Lilo and Stitch twist. First, I'm adding in plenty of pineapple. We gotta bring in those tropical island vibes. And then to this, I'm also going to add lots of red watermelon balls. And this is to represent Lilo's iconic red dress. That red dress with the big white leaf pattern will always be the classic Lilo look in my opinion. And finally, to our fruit salad, I'm also going to add in a few blueberries, because what better way to represent Stitch than a pop of blue? Then for the veggies, I'll just add in a few slices of cucumber. Now for some snacks on the side. First, I'm making a little Lilo Sammy. You guys know I love making stamped sandwiches, and I really tried to branch out this week and not make a bunch of sandwiches for every lunch. Still, I couldn't resist sneaking in this one. This little Lilo sandwich turned out so cute. I love it. Now, right next to that, I'm also gonna throw in some ranch flavored veggie chips. We'll call these beach balls. And then for the sweet treat, I have the easiest little no-bake dessert that turns out so cute. All you need to make these are Nutter Butter cookies, some candy melts or frosting, and a few sprinkles. So basically, using your candy melts or frosting, you're just gonna pipe a little V shape on top of each Nutter Butter. These are to look like the straps of a sandal. Then right where the two lines meet, you're going to add a sprinkle. Now mine happens to be flower shaped. I think that is extra cute. But in the end, you're left with something that looks like a little beachy flip-flop. These are so simple, they're so cute, and definitely Lilo approved. Now friends, if you enjoyed these lunch ideas, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join our Ohana, because around here, Ohana means family, and family means nobody gets left behind, especially at lunchtime.